one more time for the folks in the cheap seats. Removing something from your garden that's no longer serving you. There's one more note around that, and it cuts both ways. And the place I'm in now, I believe a little bit at a time is more helpful to me. My neighbor, a couple of doors down, I was chatting with them, and they said, "Oh, it's about time to start cutting down the sunflowers because they are big and beautiful and wondrous when they're all blooming." And then the birds are kind with them. The
Hmm.
squirrels are like assassins. They're
Right.
breaking all kinds of branches, going up and going down when they're eating at them. And the first few years that I grew a bunch of sunflowers, we're talking about like 2025 different sunflower stalks, and those things are big. I waited until everything was dead. It looked like a ghost town. Like there's nothing that was picturesque about it. And I spent the better part of an afternoon pulling and cutting those up to get them into the trash. And I was like, never again. So then the next year and more recently, I've cut them down a little bit at a time. That one, there's no flower, there's no seed, pull it out. But and that's the place I'm in now, generally speaking, for the garden. But what that does is it feels like you're always working in the garden.
Yeah.
There's always some level of like, and maybe I'm being unrealistic to believe that there won't be.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you say it's not picturesque, but there's something to be said about fall and the dead plants and the colors, and I kind of like it. I don't know. There's a dark
I
side
have
of me.
that view in my head, but that's not what my front yard was looking like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not. There's definitely. I have. I call him a neighbor because he's like a block away. Boy, I feel like every year I should just call him over and say, "Hey, can you do what you do over at your place at mine?" Spring flowers go out, summer flowers go out, the fall kind of you could see the slight shift where there's less color, there's more structure, and like that's what I want. This is probably the closest I've gotten to it. But again, you have to make some sacrifices. I'm not hanging on to the sunflowers because they're glorious. I'm hanging on to the sunflowers because there's a lot of work pulling and tugging at those
Yeah.
joints. You know, like, so that's I just don't feel like getting to it right now. But I bring it up because if I look and say, "Oh, I have this to pull," I have probably at least 5 things I could be taking out of my garden right as we speak, and that's not on my list of to do this week,
Yeah.
right? And again, that's the fall for many of us represents kind of the closure of the garden year. So
Absolutely.
you
And it
have not
should.
just yeah, not just your planting, not just your nurturing those plants, but it's also kind of how are you wrapping up your garden space? Like all of that's kind of folded in. And gosh,
So
if
fall
there's any
goes.
win, my last note, if there's any win, it's the for me not to be running out October 31st to try to pull tomatoes off the vine before the frost comes. Like that's the win.
Yeah.
I'll win the garden year if I don't do that.
So the fall runs until December 20th.
Hmm.
So, because you're saying that, I was thinking like, yeah, fall is definitely the time for things to die and change and all that.
Hmm.
And then I started thinking about it, I'm like, but I grow into the winter, and I don't do that in my yard. And I'm like, well, am I doing something wrong? But then I started thinking about it, and it's like, well, December 20th is fall. And by December 20th, we will have a lot of our garden emptied out. There's always going to be some holdovers, but for the
Hmm.
most part, and some things we will hang on to, but we've planned for that and we've made that so that it can happen. So there's a lot of things that can go on in fall. It's a tough time, and I don't know. This episode's been kind of weird to me, but it's been a very good conversation, and I think a lot's come out of it. Between our struggles, there's been some serious mistakes made, and I
Yeah.
can think of everything that we talked about. Like I don't have those issues in spring and summer. Like I don't have that overarching issue of sunlight and cold and all that stuff. Like it's just I don't know. It just is not an issue. You know what I mean? And I feel like the cards are stacked against the gardener, and we need to figure out. And well, everybody needs to figure out how they can unstack those cards for themselves and figure it out. And it's just one step at a time.
So is it really everything is stacked against us, or is it you are on the last leg of the triathlon Your legs are tired, you're bordering on dehydrated, like you're coming into this last bit fatigued. Is that the reason? That's when you make mistakes. That's when you can trip and injure yourself, right? Or is it again, there's no season like fall, weather wise, plant wise, sun wise.
So I think it's both. But the difference is on the first one, you said it's not that you're tired and all that. It's the fact that you went out the day before your triathlon and you ran a 10-mile training run and a 15-mile bike ride.
Yeah.
That's the problem is you've overtrained and you've overdone it. Whereas if you would have taken that break, you would come back and you would be nice and strong. I
Come
speak
on,
I
somebody.
speak from experience in both aspects, from triathlon
Be right back now.
and this. No, don't cop. No, no, this ain't.
No, no, the idea of overtraining. So for the first half of the podcast, you were louder than you normally are in my ear, and so at some point I was trying to figure out how to turn you down because I realized that I was compensating for how loud you were in my ear by being very loud.
Yeah.
So just know that Leonard may make some adjustments in the editing of this, but the overtraining. That's such a good way, especially if you have any experience with kind of these types of events. Now I look back and say, taking that lens through my garden season, and I always have that thought of like, are you doing too much? Doing too much could mean a few different things. Doing too much could mean, should you have planted all of that for summer? Should you have planted all of that for spring? Should you be trying to grow in 3 seasons? Like, the answer is I should have, I should have, I should have. But doing too much is not downsizing at fall. Doing too much is, you know, overtraining is quite literally trying to be in the garden every day. That's not realistic for me in my space now. And I have that intention. And then there's a general frustration that comes out for when I am on Saturday, kind of dragging myself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you tried to go out there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday
Yeah.
and bumped around, didn't get much done. It's like, how can you be more efficient
Yeah.
in your garden practice, especially this time of year?
Yeah.
That's why that resonated with me.
So for me, and we need to get to the recipe of the day.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.